Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 26 of the In the 11 podcast. And I realized that kind of as I've been going along here, we've been getting some new followers, gaining some new traction in terms of our audience. So, I kind of just want to reintroduce myself for those of you who may be new and just kind of stumbled across the podcast and are kind of getting into it. My name is Brendan Griffiths, and I am an American footballer, currently living in Denmark, playing for a club called Obiahoy IF, and I'm in search of a fully professional contract, whether that be here in Denmark or elsewhere. So I really appreciate all the new listeners that we have, and if you're a continued listener and you've been around here for a while, then allow me to reintroduce myself. So let's get into this episode. Before I start, let me just ask really quickly, if you are listening right now on Apple Podcasts, please click that subscribe button and leave me a review. I would really, really appreciate if you could leave a review on the podcast. Helps the podcast grow on that platform. If you're listening on Spotify, go ahead and click the follow button. If you're watching me on YouTube right about now, then please click that subscribe button. Then on all those platforms, you will be notified when I post a new episode, and you can be the first to jump on the content. If you're listening anywhere else besides those platforms I just mentioned, you are awesome, and I appreciate you. I just need to learn what the systems are for subscribing and following all that good stuff on the other platforms like iHeartRadio and Google Podcasts and all that good stuff. So thank you for listening. Keep doing what you're doing, and here we go. So episode 26, our third episode here in Denmark, and things are going pretty well, to be honest with you. I just wrapped up my first full week of training, so started the week with some smaller group sessions, and then we had two team trainings during the week, and then an intra-squad scrimmage that we played in today. I'm recording this after that game that we had today, and the training was really, really good this week, to be completely honest. I didn't really know kind of fully what to expect going into it, just because I had a rough idea of what a similar sort of level looked like over in Germany from when I was back there, but I had never been to Denmark before, and I didn't know fully what to expect. And just training with some of the guys in the smaller groups didn't really give me a great picture of what it was going to be like, but it's a super, super high level, and I was really pleasantly surprised and excited about it, to be honest, because, for me to come over here, I want to be a part of a high intensity and high octane training environment week in and week out, because that's going to push me to be my best and make me a better player, which is only going to hopefully help me in my individual career, not only with the success of this team. So I feel like, to kind of give you an idea of where I'm at in terms of the group, I feel like I'm fitting in pretty well. I didn't come into the training and kind of get swallowed by it and think, oh, this is way above my level. At the same time, I haven't come in and just been a standout from day one, which, you always kind of secretly want that, but I'm not too upset by that fact. I just want to keep working hard week in and week out and try and see if I can get closer to that point where I'm starting to shine, I'm starting to stand out from the crowd a little bit more. But I think being in a place where I fit is great for this step of my career, because it's going to allow me to hone my craft a little bit, work on the things that I need to develop, push myself, all those things, and then hopefully that can translate to the next level, which is where I'm trying to go. The more that I've talked to this coach and the more that I've been in these trainings, he's saying that it's a really, really high level as well. He thinks that this team's going to do really well at this league tier, and he honestly thinks that this is a team that could do well even at the level above us right now. His plan or his goal is to kind of do the double in back-to-back years. So get promoted this year and then get promoted the next year as well. We even do have some guys in this team that have been a part of higher levels, that have played in the third tier of Danish football. It's called the second division, or even higher than that, and have come down for, a multitude of reasons and come and played with us. So we kind of have that reputation, I guess, of a club that is at this level, but at the same time, it's not just an amateur club. Like, everyone does still take it very seriously. So we do attract players from higher levels that maybe are looking to, take their foot off the gas a little bit in terms of their career, or they're transitioning to a new phase of life, or, whatever the reason may be. This is still a club where a lot of those guys go and still want to be pushed and still want to do well and compete. So, like I said, I think I'm fitting in well in this environment, which is a positive, and I'm getting good feedback as well from the coach. At the same time, I do want to try and push and try and see if I can excel, but with the same kind of breath, I do want to give myself a little bit of leeway and a little bit of grace and not put an incredible amount of pressure on myself, just because Tuesday was the first time that I really trained in a super high intensity, high octane environment like that for probably, more than a year, maybe a year. I don't know, depending on how you look at it. I had a few group training sessions when I was training with Bistera, but nothing really like that, and yes, I put in a ton of work on my own. I put a ton of work in with my trainers, and that allowed me to get to a certain standard and come in and feel comfortable technically and physically. But like I always say, there's nothing that can replicate just being in a team training and having defenders all around you and having to make decisions. I was even talking to James, my coach at Bistera, and he was like, yeah, that's the one thing that we couldn't really fully do with you, and it's just going to take you time to adjust to that and get back into that rhythm. So I'm kind of balancing between, being hard on myself and wanting to be the best I can be, but also not just crushing myself, because it has been a long time. It's not going to come right away, and I need to just trust the process and be patient. So that's kind of where I'm at mentally, I guess, with some of the trainings that have happened so far. And then today was the 11v11 game, which again, I don't think I've played a full 11v11 match since Germany. So that was a really long time. And overall it was good, but like I said, there was definitely things I can improve on. There's things that I wish I could have had back, made different decisions, or had a cleaner outcome in the game. But overall, I can't complain too much. I played the full 90 minutes at right back. My team was the winning team. We won 3-0, and I felt like I had a solid performance, a smooth performance. There was some moments of really good quality, some moments where I made some mistakes, but overall I was sound, and I think it's something that I can build off of going forward. I think that right back is probably the spot where I'll be with this team. I think just because there are a couple of reasons. There's really good center midfielders in this team, some really high quality players in there, a lot of competition in those roles, and I think just right back is it's where I worked a ton in the off season with my trainers on right back specific stuff. I think it's where I can do really well. I feel like I've gotten better at the 1v1 defending and like the decision making processes of a right back. And if it's where I can play and it's where I can help this team, then that's where I want to be, and that's what I want to do. I want to just provide as much as I can and be as helpful as I can. And right now, the vibe that I'm getting is right back. But again, I don't know. It could be anywhere. even this week during training, I played in the center midfield. We did this possession drill, and I was kind of thrown into the fire and put in as a neutral player. It was this super tight space possession drill, and I was put in as one of the neutral players, and I hadn't played, center midfield, and all these things I'm telling you right now in the podcast. I hadn't played really competitive team training for so long into the center midfield, and it's like flying. For those of you who have played at a high level, those sessions where like the ball is moving quick, and especially if you're playing in the center, you need to be checking your shoulders 100 times every second. And it took me a minute or two to adjust. And the first pass that got zipped right into me, I didn't take a good first touch, and the ball got stripped from me. And that was a wake-up call. It's like, okay, now I have to double down, because that was my first impression of being a center midfielder in this exercise was that. So, I got to pick it up from here. So, sometimes the coach tells me that he will try and kind of Jedi mind trick players or play mind games with players, and who knows, that could have, me being put in as one of the neutral players could have been for something like that, or it could be that he foresees me playing in the center at some point. I don't know. Then, I did play at a right back today in the game, so I think that's probably a more accurate depiction of what my role in this team is going to be. Really just my biggest takeaway from this week is that I'm happy to have, my first week under my belt. I had my first week obviously in Denmark already, but it didn't feel that real because I was in quarantine. I couldn't really train or do anything, and I just wasn't settled in yet. Everything still felt kind of in limbo, and now I've been in my place for a while. I'm starting to settle into that rhythm a little bit, and the biggest thing was just I wanted to get training under my belt. I wanted to see what the level was like. The anticipation was killing me of just waiting and waiting, and I'll be honest, I was really nervous going into that first session. I just, you have so much anxiety, you have so much anticipation of what's to come in that session, and you just want to do well. You want to do well so badly, and I was happy that I did, and I felt like I did really well in that session. But I think the biggest thing with sessions like that is I just need to get to the playing part. I always, the in-between time, the off-the-field stuff where I'm preparing for sessions or preparing for games, I can sometimes get in my own head a lot, but as soon as, I'm into the rhythm, I'm into the flow, it's just football, and I've done that 1,000 times, so it allows me to kind of breathe a little bit and just settle in. So I'm happy just to have that under my belt, like I said, because then, the second training was a little bit easier. I felt like I probably did a little better in the first training, but second training was a little bit easier because I was familiar, I had seen people's faces before. And then today, it just gets a little bit easier each and every time. Not from the perspective of the actual training or the session, but just your acclimation to everything that's going on around you, to your whole new environment. I sometimes kind of take it for granted that I just flew across the country and I'm just in a new country and city that I've never been to. I'm meeting 50 new people that I've never met. I don't speak their language or their primary language, and I have to somehow figure out a way to adapt, assimilate into this culture and perform at a high level. I didn't come here to just hang out and make new friends. I came here to try and get something done, to try and get a little bit closer to my goal, and obviously there's so many other factors that go into this trip as a whole. It is, like I say, it is part of the adventure. It is part of me just wanting to have these experiences and meet new people and play in new countries, and the game has allowed me to open doors that I maybe couldn't have had I, not still pursued the game at this level. However, at the end of the day, I do have, really lofty goals for this journey out here. And so, I have to try and stay cognizant of that, even amongst all the hardship, even amongst all the difficulty that goes into coming into this brand new team with all those roadblocks in front of you. It's not easy to come into a new team anywhere, even if it's in your home country. When you're coming into a new team, especially with a ton of guys that already know each other, and you're the new guy, you kind of have to just be patient and bide your time. And the biggest thing that helps you is if you can play. Like if you can ball, then that helps you adapt to the group a lot quicker. And then, just little by little, as people get more comfortable with you, hopefully things get easier for you. And I'm hoping that's what it's going to be like over here. Obviously a little bit different than if I was, starting up with a new team in the States or something like that. But really, it's a lot of the things are super similar. So it's patience. And I'm telling this to you guys on the podcast. I'm telling you, the audience, but a lot of times I have to remind myself, this is what I'm telling myself a lot, is just be patient, because it's really hard to be. It's hard to be patient when you just want everything all at once. You want to feel a part of the team, you want to be friends with the guys, you want to be doing well, you want to be playing games. Like, it will come if you are patient and you don't force it, you don't rush things. So, like I said, each session is getting a little bit easier with adjusting and assimilating to the culture of this club, but also just the culture of this country. This club is really the gateway that I have to Danish culture right now. So I'm doing my best to try and figure out how people communicate, how they interact with each other, and then also using the context of football to do that as well. I'm definitely trying my best, but like I said, it's not easy. And there's some times where all the time I feel out of place, because they always are speaking in Danish to each other. And that's a big thing. As I'm trying to learn, I'm trying to communicate as best I can. I've started to learn. I have been practicing Danish for quite a long time, and I still do each day. I really want to be able to communicate in Danish with as many people as I can. Granted, it is nice that a lot of the guys on the team speak English, and they know that I don't speak Danish well, so they always say, like, oh, you can speak English to me, you can speak English. Or they just start speaking English with me, so that's helpful. But, I want to be a person that's showing that I'm trying to fit in with them, if that makes sense. I want to try and become a part of their culture and fit in here, because that's where I am. I'm not in the States. I appreciate them that they adapt for me, but I don't want to feel like everyone always is having to change their style or change their communication just for me. Something that I talked about in Germany that always frustrated me was I didn't feel like a lot of the guys that I was around really tried to learn German. And it was always just like, I'm American, so a lot of people speak English here and they'll just learn my language. Like, yeah, there's a good chance in my time here I might never become fluent in Danish, because for whatever reason, languages are just hard for me to learn. But I'm going to try my absolute best, and I hope that at the very least that effort can be appreciated by the guys that I'm with and by the people around me, if nothing else. I am learning, little things to use on the field, little words here and there, and I'm starting to be more communicative and more vocal, because that's something that the coach is telling me to do as well. So, and I know that that's important. I've always stressed that in anytime I was a player, anytime I was a coach. I know how important that is. And it's frustrating sometimes when I go to start to say something and I don't know how to say it in Danish, and I don't want to just yell it out in English, even though they might understand it. So there's a lot that goes into this, but hopefully the Danish, as I just hear it more and I'm immersed in it and I'm around it all the time, hopefully it becomes a little bit easier for me. I think back to when I was in Germany and remember that I probably felt the most comfortable with my German speaking ability towards really the end of my trip. By November, really, when I was going on these trials and then I really had to use my German, that was where I felt the most comfortable. Still not even anywhere close to fluent, and a lot of guys would speak English to me, but that was where I felt the best with my German. And, that was the times where I went on the trial and the president wanted to talk to me, and we started our conversation, and he said, "So do you speak any German?" And I was like, "Oh, a little bit. I'm trying to learn." He was like, "Oh, I don't really speak English." And I'm like, "Okay." And there was no one else with us in the room, no one else there to translate. And so he started speaking to me in German, and I was able to understand what he was saying, and I was able to communicate with him. Sometimes I had to have him repeat what he said like 1 or 2 times and say it really slowly, and I'm sure whatever I was saying, I was probably butchering the grammar and the pronunciation, but we were able to get from point A to point B within a conversation, and a conversation that was, important. It was about the possibility of me joining their club. So those are, things that are really important. Those are things that are valuable, and you want to make sure that those points get across. Same thing when I went on my trial with the team in Bremen, the team that I ended up signing with. After the first or the second night, or maybe it was the second night when I trained with them, the coach had offered to bring me to the train station after my practice, I was so grateful for that. I didn't have to take public transport to get to the train station or walk or anything. And then, but he offered to take me to dinner first and buy me dinner. And again, I'm broke and I'm starving, so thank you. But he didn't speak any English at all. So, the whole car ride, all through dinner, everything that we're talking about is in German. And it's really, really basic stuff. But I'm able to have a conversation, and we're able to hold a conversation together. And that was huge. I was so proud of myself in that moment. And what I guess is what I'm trying to segue into this, topic now is I'm almost a little bit frustrated because I feel as if now with my Danish that should be like a continuation. I should be in the same place, but I'm not, because it's gonna take time for me to learn it. That's the biggest thing with a language. It takes time. It takes repetition of doing it over and over to really learn it. And now I know a lot more of the tricks that are going to help me hopefully learn the language a little bit faster. I know to put the subtitles on my Netflix. I know to make sure to practice my Duolingo every single day. I know I had a trick that I used in Germany where I took like the 100 most commonly used words or something, or maybe even 1,000, I can't remember. I had a lot of time, a lot of free time in Germany. And I wrote them all down, and then I recorded them on my voice memos as what the word was and then the translation. And when I would go for walks or be on the train, I would sometimes just listen to myself and listen to that recording to hammer those words home in my head. So those are little tricks that I learned to help me learn German, and now I know when I'm in Denmark I can use those same things, and hopefully it might speed the process up a little bit more of me learning Danish. And I think the biggest difference is going to be every training, every game is going to be, everything is in Danish. Every time I'm listening to a conversation between guys at the club, it's in Danish. And I feel weird sometimes, but, I'm just watching and listening to people have conversations, and you just test yourself to see if you can pick up the context of what they're saying, if you can pick up words here and there, if you can start to piece together subjects and sentences. And I'm sure I must look like a weirdo because I'm just staring at people, and they must be like thinking, what am I doing? Because they know I don't understand. But I hope that if I just consume it as much as possible, if I listen as much as possible, that slowly things will start to kind of pick up and start to stick for me. So, my hope is that maybe by the time I get on a plane in May to go back home, or June if I'm really lucky, that I can, be in that same place I was in Germany, where I can kind of stumble through a conversation, where I can, like I said, get from point A to point B in a conversation, however long it takes. And if they need to repeat themselves a bunch, can I just get there? Another kind of, I would say, obstacle or difficulty with this situation of trying to, adapt to this club and become ingrained in this club is that the rules of COVID do make it a little bit tougher. We still are kind of able to train uninhibited, and there's not too many things that are really that out of place in terms of the training, but we can't use the locker room facilities right now, and there are some rules about we have to meet somewhere first and then walk over to the ground once the other teams that are on there before have left, because they don't want to have large groups of people gathering and stuff, and when guys are finished training, they can't really hang out around the field or hang out back in the locker room or the clubhouse area, or at the very least it has to be under the number 20, because that's the limit, and then 25 for outdoor stuff. So for team training, we always make sure that we're in groups of 25 or less in different sections of the field. So, it's not a huge difference, I don't think, but it certainly is part of it when you're in a team, when you have a locker room kind of camaraderie, I guess, and just that whole experience of being in a locker room. That's what makes a lot of times sports culture sort of unique, is you have that interaction with your teammates before practice, after practice, and now it's kind of you have to show up in your gear and leave in your gear. So you lose that a little bit. Hopefully with time, and as people get more vaccines and COVID, the situation gets better as a whole, we can maybe get that back, but I don't know. And to be honest, if it means that we get to play, but we don't have the chance to go into the locker room, I'll take that, because already right now we've had to reschedule our first game. We were supposed to play our first game in a little more than 2 weeks, actually. We're supposed to play our first game on March 27th or 26th, something like that. But the rules that are set in place right now in terms of gatherings and things like that are set until April 5th, I'm pretty sure. And then we have to wait for another week or two to see what the Danish government is going to say, if they're going to lift those restrictions, if there's going to be new restrictions. And then it's kind of after that, then we can make a decision on whether or not we can schedule a new game at all, or when we can schedule that first game. I'm hoping that it can be soon after that April 5th day, because, especially if I'm looking at my timeline of maybe having to leave on May 21st, if we don't play a game until April 10th or something, or April 15th, that's I get basically a month of playing games. But I'm not going to worry about that right now, and I'm not going to complain any amount of time here getting the chance to play and playing for this club. I'm going to be grateful for, so I'm not going to worry about that too much or complain about that. I think that really covers most of the update for where I'm at and how the week has been. It's been good, and I'm happy with it, and I'm hoping to just parlay that into this next week upcoming, and just continue to push. I will probably, towards maybe the end of next week, start looking at seeing if I can make an appointment with the embassy or immigration. I'm not sure who exactly it would be, to see about maybe extending my visa to see if I'm allowed to stay past May. To be honest, I don't know a lot about it, but I don't know. I don't feel super confident about it just because of how strict everything is with travel right now and just how strict governments usually are in terms of immigration processes. But, it can't hurt to try. And the worst that someone can say is no. So I'm still looking for jobs, of course. And if I get any more leads on that could be another way that I could maybe stay a little bit longer or stay in the future for a longer period of time. And then maybe next week or the week after, I think I'm going to probably start to reach out to clubs again and try and see what I can get in terms of trials around here maybe, or maybe see if I can get any invitations into preseasons for next season or something like that. Just because, like I said in the last episode, it is a long time that I'm going to be here, but at the same time, it's kind of not. It's actually pretty quick if you really look at the big picture. So I have to, as much as I am totally here for this team and totally here for this club, I just am, always have to look at everything, the big picture for myself, because like I said at the top of the episode, it's why I'm here. I have big goals, I have big dreams, and the goal is I want to become fully professional, and I need to take steps and concrete action to getting a little bit closer to that each and every day. So it's a balance of going full speed ahead and moving so many different things a little bit farther forward, but at the same time just being patient and trusting the process, and that's what I'm trying to balance each and every day. I was speaking to a good friend of mine who's been on the podcast before, Khadiv. I feel like I mention him almost all the time on here, but I asked him, I said, how do you balance wanting to be here 100% for this team and be in the present, but also know everything is so short, you need to kind of think about the next move, the next step after, whether that be the next contract, the next trial. And he really said it's you take it a day at a time, and you do a little bit each day, and you just be patient. And so I'm just trying to remind myself of that. I'm just trying to be active and do everything I can, but also let things come to me a little bit, and enjoy my time here as well. I said how I have big goals, but at the same time, this is a once in a lifetime experience, and I don't want to just squander that by constantly worrying about what's next, what's going to happen after. I want to have moments where I can reflect, and honestly, moments like this are great for that. It's an added bonus of this podcast where I can sit down and just reflect of how awesome it is that I just trained a full week in Germany. I just trained a full week in Denmark with a high-level club, and I met all these brand new guys, and I've had this experience. Even if it ends tomorrow, no one can take that week that I just had away from me. And I think I'm coming to more peace with that mindset of wanting so much for myself in the future and not stopping to work for that, but at the same time being content with what I have as well, and being proud of myself and relishing the moments that I'm making here and the memories that I'm going to carry with me. So yeah, again, I try and give a little bit of insight into kind of what's going on for me in terms of my brain, in terms of my thought process, and I like to try and share that with you because I feel like it might be helpful for some of you out there, some of you listening who may be going through some of the same things or wondering what things go through my mind when I'm over here. So that's the process. That's the everyday grind that I'm going through, is just that balance. I always talk about the balance of just pushing forward and thinking about your goals and being driven, but also being patient and enjoying the moment and living in the moment, because you don't want to always just think about the future. Now, let us transition over to tell us about your dream. So if you're new here, tell us about your dream is kind of like our version of listeners write in their stories. And there's a podcast that I really like that I listen to, the Ryan Russillo podcast, where he does a life advice section. And I kind of, in a way, have mirrored that concept where, my dream is to become a professional footballer, and I talk about that in this podcast. But I cater this podcast to anyone who's really pursuing something that's outside of the box, whatever that dream may be. It could be football related, it could not. And so I wanted to have this medium where you as the listener can kind of interact with the podcast in a more hands-on level and feel like you're a part of this community, because you are. So I wanted to be able to share people's dreams on the podcast and talk about maybe any advice that I can give, or just shed a light on some of you guys as the listeners out there. So again, I apologize if I butcher any pronunciation, and this one's a little bit longer, so I'll try and paraphrase some of it. So tell us about your dream this week comes from Yolimar Kasama Abulak, and they write that my dream is to have a satisfied life, to be better, more than a successful businessman, and just be a well-rounded person, mind, body, spirit. And I don't think there's really like a specific kind of facet or dream that they're really talking about. I think they're just trying to have a more fulfilled life and have a better life, and that's great. That's something that, I was just talking about. Something for me is I want to be focused on my goals and dream oriented, but also be proud of what I've accomplished and live in that success as well a little bit. So they write, I do anything in my life for the future. I've sacrificed a lot. There's been hindrances. And I always tell myself, don't give up, because the struggle you're facing today is developing your strength you need for tomorrow. I always remember every difficult situation that I've been a part of and how that can lead to good fortune. If you trust in God and you work for it, you will have it. And some of the things that really help push them is advice that they've received. It's better to give than to receive. I like that. And also one of the best pieces of advice I've received is, you can do it, you got this. So again, this is kind of a broader general topic, so I'll try and take this in the best way that I can to provide value to all of you listening out there. I think I was a person who didn't so much buy into the motivational quotes and the motivational books and videos and stuff like that. But, and on social media, I kind of just thought it was fake, it was cheesy. But I think there's moments, especially when I've been over here, where and it's almost unexpected, but there's moments that it hits me hard, where I'll just read something, or I'll watch something on social media, or a video, or someone will say something to me, and it's just like, it's resounding for me. Just little things like, when I'm on the phone with Khadib and he says to me, like, dude, I'm so happy for you. Like, I'm so happy that you're back doing what you love, and I am proud that you got back there because you worked so hard for it. And he's telling me, you know, making plans for us to visit each other when we're playing in different places coming up in the future. And, you know, a friend of mine from back home, he listens to the podcast. So B. Rice, hopefully you've made it this far. We were talking, he just asked me how things were going, and he said, yeah, man, like, keep going, we're rooting for you. And it kind of just like, I don't know, it stuck, it landed. Like, I have all these people at home that are cheering me on, you know, in moments where I feel alone out here, I feel in moments where I feel kind of on my own out here, you know, to think that I have this almost like cheering squad of people back home that are rooting me on is like, it's cool, and it pushes me, you know. A good friend of mine that I worked with at the restaurant, Joe, when he said something to me when I was kind of in a rough spot back before I'd even left, and he said something about how someone had asked him what he would put on a billboard for everyone to see if it was, you know, relative to his life, and he said he would just write, keep going, just keep going. And it just reminded me too of the quote that I saw that I really liked, that I posted on my Instagram, that was, you know, you didn't come this far to only come this far. You know, there's moments where you think about quitting. There's moments where, you know, I thought about quitting all the time when I was in Germany. The amount of times I thought about just booking a flight for the next day and hopping on the train and just going home and being with my mom and my family and the people that love me more than anything, and I love them more than anything, countless, hundreds of times. But I just kept thinking, you know, you didn't come all the way here for it to end like this. When I'm here, I'm like, you didn't come this far, you didn't go through everything that you went through for it to end like that. So just keep going. Put one foot in front of the other. It's going to be hard at times, but it's not going to kill you. And like they said, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So I guess my connection here with what this Tell Us About Your Dream is, what Yolamar is saying in this dream is kind of, you know, it is sometimes so simple for someone to just say, you can do it, you got this, or keep going. You know, for someone to say keep going, it's like, if you're not in the right mindset, you might not think much of it. But sometimes in the moments where you need it the most, for someone to tell you like, hey, just keep going, just put one foot in front of the other, don't stop, don't quit, it can be everything. Because you might have been in a place where you really thought you were done, and that was it. I've been in that place, you know, like I've talked about on here, and I still struggle with it sometimes, because I know how happy and how fulfilled I could be if I was at home with the people that love me, you know, because that's a place that I love to be. But I know that there would always be a part missing, and there'd be a piece of my heart that I would be giving up if I gave up on this dream. So I have to pursue it to its fullest extent. Really, like, at the end of the day, I'm chasing this dream to its max capacity. I don't know where it's going to lead me. I don't know where it's going to take me, but I just want to see it through. I just want to keep pushing and try and fulfill this urge that I have and this passion that I have to play the game at the highest level. So, you know, if anyone's made it this far into the podcast and you are in a place where you feel maybe stuck, or you feel like you're close to quitting, let let me be the person to tell you to just keep going. Don't stop now, because you didn't come this far. You didn't sacrifice everything that you've sacrificed to only come this far. This isn't the end of this story, this chapter. Keep pushing a little bit farther. Keep pushing a little bit farther. And, if you really know that it's time to move on and it's time for you to pursue your next endeavor, then okay, your heart will tell you that. Because I'm not saying, just stick out terrible situations always. Your heart will tell you and kind of guide you what's next for you. But if you're doing something that you love, or you're sacrificing things to try and get somewhere that you love, and it's hard, it's supposed to be hard. That's what makes it good. That's what makes it that much more valuable. Me being here by myself is what's going to make it that much sweeter when I do pursue that contract and I sign on the dotted line, because I know what I had to go through to get there. I remind myself that when I'm out here with some of these guys, I'm like, nobody went through what I had to go through to get here. Nobody's had my struggle. Nobody's had my level of difficulty to get to this point right now. And I'm going to carry that with me everywhere that I go. And it's going to make it that much more sweeter when I, like I said, sign on that dotted line, and then I get to go home and experience that with the people that I love. So just keep going. Keep going. For all you ladies and gentlemen that are out there, keep going. And keep going with listening to this podcast too, because I really appreciate it. It's been such an amazing project for me from really since the start, and now that I'm over here, it's added such a new, unique element to my life here. And so I'm grateful for you guys as the listener that interact with this show. And I would encourage you to keep listening, because hopefully it's just going to get more and more exciting as we go along here. Like I said at the top, make sure that you follow on all of the streaming platforms that you listen to right now. If you're watching the video, subscribe. Spotify, follow. Apple, leave a review, please. Love to hear your reviews. If you want to hit us up on our socials, in the 11 pod, TikTok, Instagram. If you want to send us an email, that is in the 11 pod at gmail.com. That about wraps it up here for episode 26. I appreciate it. I hope all of you guys took some value from this episode, and hopefully we can continue to pump out some great episodes here, and stay tuned for what's to come. So I will talk to all you guys soon. Peace.